Welcome back to our final segment of this edition of Chamber Exchange, the TV show. And I want to thank Steve Kerrigan, who joined us at the top of the hour, the president and CEO of the Edward M. Kennedy Health Center. And Steve, at the end of that segment, mentioned that there are 350 employees approximately at the health center in Worcester and Milford and in Framingham. If people are interested in maybe employment opportunities there, you can go to kennedychc.org, kennedychc.org. The health center not only providing important jobs into the region, but important healthcare. So take a look at that. Again, welcome back to Julie Jacobson, who's going to be with us on our final segment. We were talking in that last segment about your having to deal with this pandemic in a variety of different ways in terms of a health perspective and some of the budget ramifications. But when we did the introduction of the segment, we share with our viewers your vast experience in economic development. Julie, not only 10 years in Auburn, but at the Chamber, where you served as vice president and an interim leader on regional economic development, at the city of Worcester as the assistant city manager in charge of the economic development and the housing, the redevelopment authority, and then working in the planning office before that. So economic development is bread and butter to you, and you've got a couple projects in Auburn that have come to fruition. We got the Mary D. Stone Elementary School, an $18.9 million project, and the Julia Bancroft School redevelopment, a $19 million. Maybe you could talk about those, and I bet you're most happy that they're back on the tax rolls.
You're right. I mean, it's exciting. And, you know, as you mentioned, economic development's always been my passion. So other people may not think it's as exciting, but I happen to think it's an exciting aspect of the job. So it was thrilling for us to be able to put these two buildings out to bid. So basically we had two elementary school buildings that closed when our new middle school opened several years ago. And we put both of them out to bid. And we were very fortunate that Penrose Properties bid on both and they were the bidder and the developer that was selected for both projects. And both projects are providing, one is providing 55 units and one is providing 60 units of senior affordable housing. So there are some market units, but predominantly affordable housing units, which we desperately need here in Auburn. Our affordable housing rate is around 3.6. So we're very low off of the state's suggested rate of 10% it's a goal that we work toward. But these units will certainly help us get closer to that goal, certainly not get us at that goal yet. We still have more to do. But our seniors, we have waiting lists for seniors who want to stay in Auburn. They no longer need a large home. They no longer have the ability to take care of that home, but they don't want to leave the town. And there's very few options for them. So these two projects will be so welcomed by the seniors in this community and in the region as a whole. Penrose is great.
Yeah, and it underscores, something that the Chamber, our members, invested in a study, the housing study that we unveiled a year ago in October for the region. And as you pointed out, we need housing of all different types. We need upscale, market rate, and affordable housing, workforce housing, because if we're going to meet the needs of employers, those employees need a range of housing options, whether it be home ownership, rental. And the report also talked about, as you mentioned, the state really incentivizes and asks every community to have 10% affordable. And some communities are above that, some are below that. But as long as communities are making an effort, I think the state looks favorably in that regard. And you're adding senior housing, which is one of those areas that was mentioned, needed both affordable and market.
That's right. It's important that you hit it on the head. We need housing of all types, Tim, not just affordable. Affordable is one aspect. We need market rate. We need apartments. We need condominiums. We just need a diversified housing market that we really don't have here in Auburn or really very much in the Central Mass region. So these two projects are both projects that the developer Penrose applied for and received several federal and state tax credits. They applied for and got both buildings onto the historic register to be able to get these historic tax credits. Both buildings were built in the early to mid 1920s, and there were two sections on each building added on the back of the building that is going to be demolished, and a new section built that looks actually much more historically accurate than the current addition that was built in the 50s looks. It was a 50s addition. So it will be aesthetically pleasing, a beautiful building, and they're going to be retaining the facade and the original sides of the building. So from the outside, it's really going to appear like it's an old school. It's going to look beautiful. And yet on the inside, it's going to be functional, efficient, and provide quality housing opportunities for seniors 60 and over.
Yeah, and then the other element, where you're talking nearly, $40 million in construction and investment, those are also jobs for,
That's right.
people in the trades, our local contractors, subcontractors, again, adding vitality and dollars spent in local businesses and in the community, which is a big part of how we work our way through this economic phase or challenge of the COVID-19 crisis.
No, that's right. And you mentioned it when you first introduced this project, is that both of these parcels of land were previously non-tax revenue producing. They're tax exempt as schools, and now they'll be taxable properties. These projects are both privately operated, privately owned, and therefore these do go back on our tax rolls. The town did retain at each property, there was a playground and field behind them. So we retain those, and the developer is giving us money toward upgrading those facilities for the public. And there's a better chance for some intergenerational experiences, with a field where children play behind it and a senior living facility right there. This is not senior assisted living. This is for seniors who are independent. They likely may still have jobs, and they just want to stay in Auburn and stay in a smaller apartment as opposed to home ownership.
Right. Communities where they've raised families and worked, they want to stay and they've had relationships. So extremely important. Julie, we just have a minute left, but I also know there's a pretty significant reconstruction beautification project on Auburn Street. You want to hit on that for a moment?
Sure. Just real quickly, it's a $5.4 million project. Mass DOT is in the state is providing 80% of the funding and 20% from the federal government, and the town is putting in another 1.2 million for a total of 5.2 million. 5.4 million. And it involves reconstructing Auburn Street, which many of you know is the street that runs through Drury Square. And it's going to be from approximately where I-290 is in McDonald's, all the way up past the fire station, right under the bridge to where the pike goes over. So it's going to involve some beautification, new plantings, landscaping, better sidewalks, crosswalks, much better signage. And it's going to make hopefully Drury Square appeal more as a downtown area. As you know, Auburn really doesn't have a defined downtown, but that really is acting as our downtown. So by coordinating signage and landscaping and decorative lighting and creating a better environment, we hope that it helps the business community and make it more attractive for businesses to locate to the Drury Square area, and for residents and visitors to be able to better navigate as pedestrians into and out of these businesses.
Right. Well, a lot of good stuff happening in Auburn, notwithstanding the challenges of the COVID-19 crisis. And again, Julie, been a pleasure to work with you in a lot of different roles, and over the last 10 years in your role as town manager, working hand in glove with your board and the Auburn Chamber. I know Steve Lonergan and the board and staff enjoy working with you immensely as well. And thanks for being with us. And
thank you.
And thank you to our viewers for joining us on this edition of Chamber Exchange and TV Show.